Awesome. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Feeling Crabby. My name is Ipsita, and I'm a public programs intern for UGA Marine Extension and Georgia Sea Grant. We conduct research, education, and outreach for healthy coastal ecosystems and communities. All right, and so we are going to start with a blue crab activity. And this is a picture of a blue crab for reference. You can see it has a slight blue color to it. Especially on its shell, which is called the exoskeleton. And Kayla is going to talk all about exoskeletons now, so I'm going to hand it over to Kayla.
Thank you, Ipsita, and thank you all for joining us. I do want to start by saying that this program, we are going to be all focused on different kinds of crabs. So we'll be thinking about what makes a crab. We'll transform me from Kayla the human to Kayla the blue crab. We will play a quick game of crab aerobics, and then we'll meet some live crabs. But if you're tuning in expecting to learn a little bit more about crabbing in general, I encourage you to check out our Marine Extension and Georgia Sea Grant YouTube page and see our archive program on Crabbing 101, because that goes into a lot more depth on how to actually crab. But today we're going to be thinking about what makes a crab a crab. So I need your help to turn me into a blue crab. So the first thing that's different between humans or people and blue crabs is that we are vertebrates. So feel in the middle of your back, and if you feel that bumpy thing back there, that's your spine. So humans are vertebrates. Crabs, all crabs, are invertebrates. That means that they don't have any spine, and they actually don't have any internal bones at all. So the first thing I need you to do is turn on your imaginations, and then imagine you have magic fingers. You're going to wiggle them at the screen towards me, and on the count of 3, you're going to say no bones. And if you're home and you're in a place that you can do it, you can shout it as loud as you can, just once. No bones. And if your dog says, don't do that, that's okay. You can whisper it as quiet as you can. No bones. Okay, and I'm going to turn my magic fingers towards me. So here we go. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. No bones. Oh, I'm so wiggly. Luckily, instead of bones, blue crabs do have another structure that allows them to support themselves. It's called an exoskeleton. This is the hard outer part of the crab's body. So I'm going to go ahead, and it might be a little bit of a tight fit because this is usually a costume that we use for kindergartners, but I'm going to go ahead and stick my exoskeleton on. And if you're interested in making your own exoskeleton and all of your own crab body parts, in the chat box in just a minute, you'll also see that we do have an activity sheet with step-by-step instructions on how to make this costume for home. But here we go. I've got my exoskeleton on, and it might be a little hard to hear this on the computer mic. Can you hear that knocking sound? So it actually is very hard. And a real crab, its whole body would be covered with that hard exoskeleton. But so that I can still move around, we're just going to pretend that the rest of me is covered with a hard exoskeleton. So basically, it's kind of like a shell, but it covers the whole body. Next, I need something to help me move around. So crabs have legs, and they use their arms and their legs for similar purposes. So we're going to count my arms as legs. And I need your help to count the legs. Before we do, though, I'm curious if you already know how many legs a crab has. So Ipsita is going to start a poll, and you will see that your options are 6 legs, 8 legs, or 10 legs. So we'll get that poll started. And while our poll is starting, we'll go ahead and get the legs. And so with our legs, I'm going to need your help to count. Oh, one moment. It looks like our crabbing poll is over here. So it looks like most folks said 8 legs, which is a really good guess. Believe it or not, well, we'll figure out the answer together. We're going to count them as we go. So here we go. 1, 2, and if you're at home, you can count 2, 3, 4, 5, and these are just stockings that are stuffed if you're making your costume at home. 6, 7, oh, you lost a leg. That's actually an adaptation that crabs have. They can lose legs to avoid predators, because it's much better if you're a crab to lose a leg as opposed to lose your head. So what we were on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The one that dropped is 7, 8, 9. And then the last one is 10. So how many legs does a crab have? That's right, they've got 10 legs. Awesome. And on crabs, their front legs have something really special. They have a structure that allows them to help them eat, help them protect themselves. So in the chat box, go ahead and write what that special feature is called, what's special about crabs' front 2 legs. We're going to circle back to that question because I'm going to need my human hands to finish up the costume. The next thing we're going to add is our head. So crabs don't really have, a neck and a head the way that I do, but they do have a face. They have a general area of their body that has eyes, it has a mouth, it has sensory organs. So this is the head region, and it is also covered by that hard exoskeleton. So you can hear that knocking sound. And if you look up close, what do you see on the top of my head now? Anyone know what those structures are called? Ipsita, did we have any answers in the chat box?
Yeah, we had a couple people say antenna.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And those antennae actually help the crab sense its environment. The other thing that they use to sense their environment are eyes. And they have eyes similar to an insect that are called compound eyes. So what we've done is we've taken sequins and we've glued them onto some sunglasses to help us remember that their eyes see lots of different images all together. So I'll go ahead and I'll stick on my crab eyes. And then, Ipsita, did we have any responses in the chat box about what the special part of crab's front legs are called?
Yeah, so we had some people say claws and other people say pinchers.
Yes, they do have claws. So bonus question for you. Does anyone know what the difference is on blue crabs between a male's claws and a female's claws? You can go ahead and you can write that in the chat box. And Ipsita, did we have any answers?
We did not have any responses, but we're excited to learn.
Okay, awesome. Well, what's really cool about blue crabs is you can tell just by looking at them which ones are male and which ones are females. So the females are going to have a red colored claw, whereas the males are going to have a blue colored claw. So I'll put on one of each so that we can remember that blue crab claws come in 2 different colors. We will go ahead and put on our claws. And again, you can look up how to make this costume on that activity sheet. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do some crab aerobics because crabs move a lot. That's a behavior that they do in the wild to find food and avoid getting eaten. I'm going to take my compound eyes off so that I can see what we're doing. But the way this is going to work, and you can do it at home too. So if you want, you can hop up, stand up, and you're going to move in the directions that Ipsita tells us. So for instance, if she says, and I'm actually going to take my head region off too, so it doesn't fall off. So if she says left, you're going to at home hop to the left. She says right, you're going to hop to the right. She says it twice. If she goes left, left, each time she says left, you'll switch, do 2 hops in that direction. So we're going to go ahead, everyone get ready, and see if you can keep up with Ipsita's directions. And we'll start off kind of slow until everyone feels comfortable, and then we'll speed it up a little bit. Okay, Ipsita, I think that our crabs are ready.
All right, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, 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 right, right, left, right, right.
Now we're going to go really fast and see if you can keep up at home.
Left, right, left, left. Right, left, right.
So hopefully you're able to keep up and get up and moving a little bit. You can go ahead and you can return to your seat because now we're going to transition and actually meet a live blue crab. So as I take off the body parts, just a reminder that these are the legs. And then anyone remember what that hard structure was called that crabs have all over the outside of their body? This is a long scientific word, but if you remember it, you can type it in the chat box. And then, Sita, did anyone remember what this was called?
We had one person say shell and another say exoskeleton.
So it functions similar to a shell, but it is called an exoskeleton. If you think of like an exit sign, it takes you outside a building, and skeleton is kind of like a structure, so it's an outside structure for the animal. Awesome. So we're gonna meet a live crab, and I'm curious, how many of you have been crabbing before? So we're gonna start a poll and see how many of you have actually been crabbing, because blue crabs are a really popular one to catch. And did we have responses on the poll? Okay, awesome. So it looks like about half and half. So if you are curious about how to go crabbing, we've got lots of resources on our website and also on that same link where the activity sheets are. But we're going to transition to looking at some live blue crabs. So right now, this is one that's in a tank. What are some things that you're noticing about this animal? You can go ahead and you can type that in the chat box. Or any questions that you have. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get out one of our blue crabs so that we can see it up a little close. And Sita, did we have any questions or observations?
Yeah, so we had people say that its eyes are a bit long, that they noticed that one of the claws is slightly bigger, and that it is a bit blue.
Those are great observations. I'm noticing a behavioral observation. You might have seen the camera shift as our feisty blue crab was moving around. So I'm going to transition to my laptop screen so that you can see what it looks like from the underside. So folks had mentioned that it had some blue coloring on it. What other color do you notice on the front of this animal's claws? You might remember that red is female and blue is male. So what kind of a crab do we think this is?
We had people say that they noticed the orange and red on the claws.
Yes, absolutely. So that's one of the ways that you can tell it's female. The other way you can tell is if you look at the bottom here, this is called the apron, and it's nice and round. So on a male, it would be more pointy and thin, but on a female, it's going to be round. And this is a mature female. An immature female would be more of a triangle shape on there. Any other questions or observations?
We did have a question. What are the two things that look like rabbit teeth?
That is a great question. So the two things that look like rabbit teeth right in the front there, those are, yes. So that's actually where, so that's a great observation. So that's where the mouth is. So that's where they're going to be transferring food. And also if we're looking up at that front area, do you see the eyes, those two round parts on the front there? And then this is also a good view. That back leg looks more like a flipper or a fin. So these are actually swimming crabs. So they're living in the ocean, they're living in brackish or areas where there's salt and freshwater mixing, rivers. But either way, they're in the water, they're swimming around, and that back leg really helps them do that well. Their scientific name actually means savory, beautiful swimmer, which I think is pretty cool. Any other questions from the group? Things people are wondering about?
So we had one person wondering, how do you hold it without getting pinched?
That is a great question. There's a couple different ways to hold it. The way that I like to do it is to hold it by their swimmerettes, that's their back leg, right at the joint where it connects to the carapace or the top shell. I like to put my thumb on the front part, on the top part on the carapace, and then my pointer finger right on the back part of that joint, and then you'll notice that the rest of my fingers are tucked in close to my hand because they are incredibly flexible and they're also really fast. So you'll notice on a couple of the other crab species that we look at today, some behavioral differences. So blue crabs are definitely a very active crab. They're well adapted to move quickly, and you can tell by their claws that they can, they do scavenge, but they also can catch prey as well. Any other questions, things that people are wondering about?
Yeah, so how do these crabs breathe?
That is a great question. So everyone take a deep breath, let it out. You just use maybe your mouth or your nose to bring air in, and then it went to your lungs. In contrast, crabs use gills. So they're also breathing oxygen, but they get it dissolved in the water, and they use their gills, similar to fish, to breathe. And those gills are located underneath this part here, kind of in the abdomen. And that's actually a part that you would clean if you're going to eat the crab. And we do have videos of that on our YouTube page as well. And once it's cooked, they look kind of a gray color. So you would take those out before eating.
We have 2 more questions. The first is, what do they eat?
That is a great question. Pretty much everything. They are not picky eaters. So they'll eat organic matter that is decomposing on the bottom of the sea floor. So that might be bits of fish or other crabs or anything really that's meat. If anyone's gone crabbing, you can even use chicken and they'll eat that as well. So they're pretty opportunistic. They'll eat all different, very varied diet.
And then why is the crab white in the front?
That is a great question. So this is actually really common in marine animals. This is called counter shading. It's a type of camouflage. So you'll notice it's light on the bottom, and then it's actually pretty dark on the top. And the reason for that is because if you're a predator and you're looking down at this animal, it's going to blend in with the muddy bottom. And if it's swimming, because this is a swimming animal, if it was swimming and you're a predator or prey looking up at it from the bottom and looking up towards the crab, that its belly is going to blend in with the lighter water at the surface where the sunlight is coming in. So you'll also see that in sharks and a lot of different types of fish and even penguins. Great questions. I'm going to go ahead and put our live blue crab down so that we can meet some other crabs. But if you think of more questions, please feel free to add those in the chat box. And we actually have a question for you, which is if you are going to catch these and keep them to eat, how wide from spike to spike does this animal need to be in order to keep it legally in Georgia, according to Georgia regulations? So your options are going to be 3 inches, 5 inches, or 8 inches. Once you get your answers in, we'll share those results. And Ipsy, what were the results there? Oh, I see. So, oh, nice. So it seems like we have a mix of results. Most people thought it was 8 inches. If you have an 8-inch crab, you can definitely keep it, but it just has to be a minimum of 5 inches. So this is part of a blue crab carapace after the animal molted or shed its exoskeleton. So I found this morning when I was collecting our fiddler crabs. So where you're measuring is from one spike to the other spike. So I brought a ruler here, and you all can let me know if this were still alive. Well, it molted, so the animal's still alive, but if it was still attached to the crab. Who can put in the chat box about how many inches wide this crab shell is?
We have responses for about 3.5 inches.
Yes. So could we keep this crab legally?
No.
No. Yeah, so we would throw that one back. And the reason for that is so that then it can get big, it can lay more eggs, and there'll be more crabs in the future for us to catch. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to switch over to my cell phone video, and we're going to meet a couple of other crabs that you can find in Georgia waters and compare them maybe to the blue crab that we just saw. this is a blue crab. As we move around, just for a size comparison, the one next to it is much bigger. Anyone know what kind of crab this is? If you do, you can add that to the chat box. They're usually a little bit less aggressive, almost timid when we have them here in the aquarium. This one is responding to the camera though. And it's seated. Did anyone know what this animal was?
We did not have responses for this animal, but again, we're excited to learn. Actually, a response just came in for stone crab.
Yes, you are absolutely right. So this is a stone crab, and if you look close at its claws, you might notice that they're really big and strong. They're pretty thick. So this gives us a clue about how this animal makes its living. So this animal is going to have crushing claws. So it might be eating things that have a shell, but it really has to crunch through. But you'll notice, even though it's pretty active right now, it's still a little bit slower and not quite as active as the blue crab was. And you can really see its face moving right now. Any questions or observations about this animal?
We had some questions. How long have crabs been around as a species?
Oh, that is a great question. And I'm not actually sure. We'll have to look that up and send it out in our follow-up email. There are lots of different species of crabs. So there are likely kind of different histories of how they came to be adapted the way they are now, depending on the species. So we're going to move on to another crab. Before we do though, if you look at those very back legs, do you see how they're still pointed? That gives us a clue as to where this crab is living. So it's going to be living on the bottom of the river. In contrast to the blue crab that has that more paddle-shaped swimmerette or back fin. So this one is going to be a swimming crab, whereas this one is more of a walking crab. So just to show you another swimming crab, and follow me along here. And this one is much smaller, and it's hard to tell when they're this size. This could be a juvenile blue crab, but there's also a number of different small swimming crabs in Georgia, which is what I think this one is. We'll see if we can show it swimming, because it is pretty beautiful to watch swim. In the back corner there is a spider crab. So this is another walking, not swimming crab. And we'll see if we can get a little bit of a closer look at it. So this animal, compared to the stone crab especially, and also the blue crab, look at how small its claw is. So that gives us a hint that this crab is much more of a scavenger. So it's walking along the bottom of the seafloor or the estuary floor, creek floor, looking for organic matter like bits of fish that are breaking down, called detritus. They're also sometimes called decorated crabs, because if you see all those spikes on its back, it can actually attach algae or sponge or all different kinds of things to help it blend in and camouflage. Any questions about the spider crab?
So how big can a spider crab get?
Great question. So the ones here in Georgia don't get too much bigger than this one that I'm holding. There are other species of spider crabs in colder parts of the ocean that do get much larger than my hand. This one, I've never seen a spider crab here that's really bigger than my hand. Oh, look at that. So it's kind of giving me a hand hug. It's wrapped its legs around my hand. This is a behavior that in the wild, they'll use to get a free ride. So oftentimes, if you're walking along the beach in Georgia and you find a cannonball jelly washed up on shore, you lift up the bell or the top part of the jelly, sometimes you'll see spider crabs holding onto the trunk or the bottom part of that jelly. Any other questions about the spider crab?
Yeah. Do they use their claws to attack?
That's a great question. So I don't know if they were around another spider crab, if they might use it for defense. But again, their claws are very small. So mostly they're using that to move food from the floor the river floor up to their mouth. So we do have one more crab to show you. So I am going to stop my video here, show you the next one. So in this tank, we have some fiddler crabs. We actually have some wharf crabs as well. So these were collected out of the marsh this morning. They're on some sand to mimic their natural habitat. But what are some things that people are noticing about these animals? Or any questions that you have?
Well, people are putting their observations into the chat box. We had a question. Why do crabs live in the ocean?
Oh, that is a great question. So different animals are adapted to live in their particular environment. So the ocean, for one thing, has a lot of food. So it's a good place to live if you're an animal because you've got lots of things to eat. And blue crabs, for instance, are well adapted to use areas that have different kinds of salinity or different amounts of salt, which is why our salt marshes here in Georgia are so important, because at different points in their life, they're going to move to different parts of the estuary where it's saltier or less salty. And that helps give them cues about kind of when to develop or when to do different aspects of their life. And they're well adapted to swimming, so their body allows them to be in water, whereas the fiddler crabs that we're looking at, they're going to be near water, but they're mostly going to be walking, and you can see that they've got more of a walking legs. It's kind of hard to see at this angle, but that one that's hiding way in the back, I don't know if you can see, but it's got one claw, so that lets us know that it's a male fiddler crab, and they'll actually use that claw a little bit for defense, but mostly to get the attention of the lady crabs. So they'll wave that claw around, and each one has its own unique dance that it will do, which is pretty cool. If you get a chance to go into a salt marsh or near a salt marsh and just sit for a while until the crabs get comfortable enough to come back out, you can actually watch these crabs doing their dance. Super cool. Any last questions? I know we have just a minute before we start to wrap up.
Why is it called a fiddler crab?
Oh, that's a great question. I think because of that one bit large claw, it looks like it's carrying a violin or a fiddle, and the behavior when it's waving, it looks a little bit like fiddling. And just to show you, this is where I collected them this morning. This is what it looks like in the wild. So that burrow is where it lives. And all of those sand balls around there are actually kind of like crab spitballs. So basically they eat detritus, they're breaking down organic matter on the beach, and then they spit back out the sand. And when the tide comes in, they can even roll one of those big sand balls back over their burrow to keep it from getting flooded. So I'm going to turn it over to Ipsita just in the last minute to wrap us up and give us some reminders before next week.
Thank you so much, Kayla. So if you had fun today, then I hope you will consider joining us next Tuesday at 11 a.m. for Meet the Fleet. In addition, every Thursday at 2 p.m., we have a virtual series for families with children ages 4 to 8, with next week being all about horseshoe crabs. This is the first summer that we have done virtual programs, and your feedback is incredibly valuable for shaping what these programs look like moving forward. Please take 1 minute to fill out the survey in the chat box. The chat box will disappear when we end the meeting, so go ahead and click that link now or copy and paste into a new window so that you have it for after the meeting. I do want to give a big thank you at this time for any friends in the audience, as your donations and support help us offer educational programming this summer. And if anyone is interested in becoming a friend, the application is on our website. You can also stay connected with us after this program by attending other public programs, following us on social media, or learning about our volunteer and internship opportunities. Thank you for joining us, and see you next week.